Hi everyone, this is Kylie from Stampers Workshop. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator here in Australia. Today we're going to make a really pretty card and I think you're going to love it. We're using the dies from the new Butterfly Bouquet collection and the coordinating Butterfly BIJOU 6x6 designer series paper. The dies actually, or one set of the dies, coordinate perfectly with one of the printed papers, as you can see. And so that's what we're going to use to make our card. We're not using the stamp set from this collection. It doesn't have sentiments, so I'm pairing it with the Itty Bitty Greetings sentiment. The stamps are also really pretty and I think you're going to love them as well, but this printed paper makes it really easy to make quick cards that look so beautiful, especially if you don't like colouring. Now I love colouring, but if colouring's not your thing, then you'll find this paper to be perfect, really. They're gorgeous colours. Okay, once we've die cut all of the butterflies out, I'm going to put aside the few that I'm not going to use. I'm using the two of the smallest ones and then a blue. For the next step, take an adhesive sheet and apply it to a sheet of basic white cardstock. We're going to do a lot of die cutting, and having the adhesive already in place just makes it easier when we try and attach it to our card down the track. This time we're going to use the detailed dies from the Brilliant Wings die set, and we're going to do lots of die cutting. Okay, now we're going to fill up that paper with all of the dies. Try and position them to make the most of the space that you've got. We're actually going to cut out quite a few, but I'm only showing one lot here. Cut out more than you'll think you need, because that way you've just got them on hand and you don't have to keep going back to and doing it again and again and again. You've just got as many as you need. And if you've got lots left over, you can make another card. Now you noticed I ran it through my die cutting machine quite a few times. That's because with the adhesive on the back, it can be a little harder to cut through that last layer. As you can see, it does, most of the dies do stay stuck on that panel, and so just use your pick tool or some tweezers to help separate them from the die itself. At this point I got another panel of basic white cardstock. Now this is cut to the same size as your card background, because what I'm going to do now is separate all of the dies from the adhesive and stick them directly onto this panel. And because it's the same size, I can tidy up my ends later on and cut the panel to the size that I want. As you can see, some of these pieces are quite fiddly and you've got the adhesive on the back. So I'm not going to go through every die cut with you. As you can see, it's quite fiddly, but I just wanted to keep it real so that you can see it is fiddly, but it's worth it. So don't let this sort of step discourage you from trying it, because the result is completely worth it. And as you can see here, by pulling off the backing, a lot of the pieces stayed on the backing, so that some of the dies were easier to fix up than others of them. Now you can see I've got them hanging over the edge, so I just cut them to size, cut off the excess, and because some of them aren't perfectly flush with the edge, what you can do later on, as I said, is then use your die cutting machine to tidy it up. But you can also, see how some of the pieces are quite large? I can actually use those to fill in gaps on my panel. So I don't necessarily have to die cut a whole new butterfly. I can just use part that I've already cut off the edge and fit it into that gap. So keep that in mind when you're making your card as well. It's a bit hard to see here, but you can see all those beautiful white on white, and it looks really pretty. Okay, I'm just pressing it down just to make sure that all of that adhesive sticks. And you can see from the detail, it would be so painful to have to try and add liquid adhesive or any other adhesive onto it. This way it's all done and you're good to go. Okay, so now we're up to the next step. I've chosen a coordinating piece of paper and I'm now positioning my butterflies. Now you can pop them up here or you can have them flat. I like them to be popped up, so that's what I've done. And I'm also a little bit sometimes I'm a bit of a lazy crafter. Instead of trying to measure it, I just kind of plonk things down and then go, oh, that fits. So I kind of positioned where I thought that they would go. And oh yes, I do like to use a lot of dimensionals. I like it to know that it's going to stay popped up where I put it. So if you're not one of those people, don't worry, but I am, so forgive me. You could also use the die cut if you wanted to at that point, but I just thought it was easy just to cut the panel to shape that way. And I also use my paper trimmer to sort of go, if I put my die here and I want that much of a border, it's just like the cheats way of doing it, rather than sort of adding tick marks or using a die. Okay, now I'm going to add the popped up butterflies to that lovely panel. I know you can only see a hint, but I think it's really all that you need. Isn't that looking good? I really love how it's coming together. I hope you can see. I've got a top fold card here, but you can use whichever you like. And I'm just adding a little bit of a border. As I said to you before, this sort of tidies up those edges a little bit if you've got something that you didn't quite cut straight. This is your time to sort of tidy it all up. And you can have as big a border as you like. Oh, you can see when I cut down that I've actually pulled a little bit of the butterfly up. Don't worry, easily fixed. I'll just chop it off with the scissors again and straighten it all up, and no one will ever know. And that's the advantage, as I say, of having that adhesive sheet on the back. I don't have to worry about little bits lifting up. I can just press it straight back down. Okay, now that panel's complete, I'm adding it to my card base for a nice white on white finish. And then I'm adding the middle panel as well, the decorative panel, and that's going in the middle as well. I have made this card earlier and I used a pink scented butterfly, and then I used the background with pink as well, and it just looks so pretty. I think you're going to really love it. Okay, here's the Itty Bitty Greetings that I'm using, and I'm using Happy Birthday because who doesn't need birthday cards? I always do. If you do have any sort of embossing buddy or something like that, I find that it's very helpful when embossing, so that you don't you lessen the chance of having specks. Get your VERSAMARK, ink up your stamp, and then stamp it on, and then use your white embossing powder and heat it up, and it gets that nice glossy. Don't we all love it when we do embossing? I know it's a gateway to crafting for a lot of people when you just see how it melts and gets that really vivid shine. I certainly, even after all these years, I've been crafting for a long time, and I still love watching it melt, and it just looks so good. Okay, classic label punch. I use this all the time. Instead of trying to sort of cut and make it even with my trimmer, I usually just use my classic label punch and then snip off the ends if I want it just to be a rectangular shape. Attach your sentiment and your card is finished. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you'll like it. I hope you'll give it a try. Bye.